The murder of 36-year-old businessman and part-time car salesman David Ungi acted as a catalyst that plunged Liverpool into gang warfare. In the following 22 days after the death of David, 10 reported shootings had taken place. Homes were set alight and the dingle community were angry and both terrified. And criminals were trying to confront police with their own sense of street justice, so much so that the police had to prepare for the worst by driving around in armoured cars, carrying hecklers and koch semi-autos. The first time that this was sanctioned in the UK during a time of peacetime. On the evening of May 1st, 1995, David Ungi, who was well known in the business and criminal world, had been driving around North Hill Street, his Volkswagen Passat travelling at around 20 miles per hour. Now David had passed by long rows of semi-detached homes and takeaway shops as he headed towards the banks of Mersey. The ordinary and unremarkable Dingle Street would soon turn to the scene of an execution that changed Liverpool's criminal landscape forever. David, whom thought he was safe in his own community because he had still lived there and was part of a tough and respected family, had not noticed a black VW Golf GTI pull alongside his car before veering round the front of the Passat, blocking off David's right of way. In a matter of seconds, a masked man had decamped the black Golf, brandished an automatic GUN, and then squeezed the trigger, emptying out the machine. David had immediately gone into survival mode and tried to avoid the hot AM as he made his escape by getting out of his car and running, but the damage was already done. The dad of three was struck twice with hot metal going through the main artery. David had collapsed after his legs could no longer carry him, and as an athletic man, David was a good runner and had good cardio, but when he was peppered with hot lead, parts break down. No longer able to move, looking up, and so far removed from his high-profile and respectable self, David Ungi had drew his last breath on North Hill Street and laid on the ground, now dead. Now David was tough. He was a champion boxer and a businessman. His bread and butter was allegedly selling cars, even though it was said that David was still unemployed as well, despite being a businessman. As David was declared dead, large parts of Liverpool was torn. Police later reported that 6 weeks before his end, David had taken part in an organised scrap with another hard man that was aligned with Johnny Phillips, and this took place in Toxteth side street in front of gangs from both sides. Two men aimed to settle a dispute over David and his mate allegedly being barred from a pub called the Cheers, which was located in Aigburth Road. David and his mates had previously drank in a pub and conducted business there when a conversation between another group of people turned into an argument. Insults were thrown and arguments about who was the bigger and more respected man and who was the tougher person rang out across the pub. The Cheers had just changed ownership and the new owners were not keen on David Ungi, nor the fact that he continuously used the pub as his own business location. It was alleged after David received notice that he was barred from the Cheers, David offered to settle all disagreements over a one-on-one scrap, a straightener, and that straightener took place on 21st of March 1995. Now, the unanimous winner was David. He was successful and he defeated Johnny Phillips's people. However, it was allegedly not fair. Some members of Johnny's gang believed David Ungi had cheated, using dusters and striking Johnny's friend from behind in order to get the upper hand. And one of the theories surrounding David Ungi's execution is that Johnny Phillips was seething with the lopsided outcome. So enraged that he had lost, he then put out word that he would pay anybody and pay any amount for them to kill David Ungi. Effectively, a hit had been ordered. Just one day after David Ungi had been killed, police then confirmed that there had been a previous attempt on David's life. David had been struck with ammo while on Morton Street, and in the aftermath, David Ungi was said to have been paranoid, angry, skittish, and, according to his wife, frightened. For himself and his family, he took to wearing a vest underneath his clothes, even while going out for his regular run in Prince's Park. But for some unknown reason, David was not wearing the vest at the time when he was killed, and by May 5th, just 4 days after, the violence on Liverpool streets had reached new heights, and police detectives were forced to hold talks with the underworld bosses in a bid to keep the peace. Police had also ordered armoured estate cars to carry teams of armed officers around Liverpool to survey what was going on. Police had also set up military-type checkpoints across key locations or hotspots in Liverpool, and known criminals were stopped and searched multiple times a day. This was the first time that police officers in the UK were sanctioned to openly carry their GUNs in order to combat crime that was rising. But still, the civilians of Liverpool were scared to come out of their homes, and in the following days of his there had been a shooting at Vic's Gym in Beach Street, Kensington, and an incident at the pub Cheers where it was set alight. And later, on the weekend of the 20th and 21st of May 1995, there were at least 2 shootings in which 5 people had been injured, and another 8 shootings over the following 3 weeks. A woman was shot 5 times, and a passerby was also struck in a shooting in the city centre, and shots were fired at the home of one of the men being questioned in David Ungi's Now, one of David Ungi's brother's house was also shot at, and then on November 20th, the family of David Ungi's had spent more than £12,000 to lay the car dealer to rest, and over 1,000 mourners had gathered at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church in alight. The funeral saw 31 stretch limousines followed by a flatbed lorry covered with flowers, and it took his body to the church. Now, at least one person had been arrested in connection with the but they were ultimately not charged, and of course it was dropped. 25 years later, the crime still remains unsolved, which means that a lot of people are still left with uncertainty and heartbreak as to wanting to find out what happened to David Ungi. Was this just a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or had David Ungi done something that has not been revealed, and this was, as sad as it may be, karma? Who knows, but condolences. Stay safe.